Good evening, YouTubers and my group of readers for the evening. I'm Nina Corwin. This is the monthly Traveling Molly's reading coming to you from all over, but mainly tonight from, well, actually, people from all over, let's just say. Our features tonight are Ahi Lee, who I'll tell you more about later. Um, Nicole Callihan is our others. And you may notice that Al DeGenova is not here with us tonight. He is in Mexico, no doubt having a terrible time. So I asked my friend Brenda Cardenas to be my guest host for the evening. There's been a lot that's gone on in the world since we tuned in last. And so it's good to be among friends, even if virtually. As many of you know, we get started with the hosts reading a poem. We're going to do it a little bit different tonight. I'm going to start by reading. Brenda's going to wrap up the open mic. And after the open mic, we go into the features. After the features, we have a conversation. I have a conversation with Ahi and Nicole. And it's just going to be a really nice time, I believe. Now, well, let me just do this because I don't think I can handle going into any blabbing about what happened last week, but I want to just read something that Brenda posted on Facebook um, that really struck me, and it's by Federico Garcia Lorca. He says, "I will always be on the side of those who have nothing and who are not even allowed to enjoy the nothing they have in peace." Hopefully, maybe we will hear other bits of wisdom from people in the course of the night. I imagine we will. But I'm going to start with a poem that has nothing to do with that. It's called All of It Baggage, None of It Checked. And probably most of you will have had some dream about travel and with it baggage. That's where this comes from. Last night's butt baggage. Let me start that over. Last night's luggage arrives triple padlocked. I've forgotten the combination. Tuesday's got its shit kicked in, ribs cracked, our valuables unlatched. Inside, there's a family of finger puppets, all of them talking at once. To my chagrin, I've morphed into a pack mule, saddled and stocked for the haul. What we've got is a case of too many elephants, clowns in the closet, a fluster of butterflies raising the basement. The lid won't buckle down. We keep packing and unpacking, packing and unpacking what we leave behind. Passports, deodorant, some nights the suitcase itself. I never should have left it unattended. They warn you, but after the first 100 times, who listens? See? We're up to our knees in a sea of them. Either they look the same or someone switched the tags. At the carousel, the handle comes off in my hand. All the sky caps are assisting other passengers over and over. Security scatters our baggage for contraband. I insist we have nothing to declare. It's a lie. We're over the weight limit, always something unchecked. The many headed beast in me, the corsets that cinch you into place, landmines and gas masks, the latest releases. Every morning, there's a little spilling over, something like a shirt tail caught in the zipper. Thank you. And just a heads up to my wonderful guest co-host, Brenda. We will take turns introducing people without a lot of fanfare, but we will introduce them and thank you guys all for being here. Why don't we start with oh, there's a couple people who are not here. But why don't we start with somebody who's been here before and knows how to get us going? That'll be Pablo Arevalo. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Nina. Thank you so much for everyone being here. I have two for you today. First one is America, how unlikely. America, how unlikely, O land of the subsiding sea, the uncommon commons, so proudly middle class, no matter how poor, how vast your indoor spaces, how complicated your infrastructure, how labile your national mood. There is another field of switchgrass, violets under pine, sandstone. There is granite exposed to the Arctic Sea, and gypsum dunes on rundown ports, and train yard dogs and talent shows on prime time. Frayed threads in torn fabric. Yet the house does not fall. The earth and air, the squeal of pig slaughter, the greasy upper crust milking the downtrodden, as much as the middling classes, unapproving and bored, unloved and resentful, proud and afraid, oh terrified, oh disengaged, pilgrims of brimstone, the gilded age, the killing fields, the overcast sky leading us back into a steel darkness. Thank you. And then the second one I have for you. I was hoping to stop reading, but I guess I'm going to keep reading this one. It's called You Wake Up for Gregor Samsa from Kafka's Metamorphoses. You wake up and one day you are a vermin, and your brother a vermin, and your son is a vermin, and he loses his job and can't get out of bed. And you wake up walking across the desert, a checkpoint for vermin. A dangerous fool reads a book to a crowd that you are snakes, that your family should die in a river or under a house, or they say you are rats. You wake up stateless against a wall or a fence, and they throw apples at your wounded body while it's a nice day.
Pablo, we can just stop the reading tonight. That's all we need.
That was great. That was great. Beautiful poems. Okay, so next, why don't we have, how about you, Anna VQ Ross, who I always call Anna.
I love it when you call me Anna. Thank you. Okay. I always have to wait till the end because of my last name, so I'm excited to mix that up a little bit. Thank you for those poems, Pablo. You really know how to end a poem. That was beautiful. And I'm really happy to be here with everyone. I'm going to read two poems from what is at the moment a series. And they both, like all of the poems in this series, share the same title and first line and last word. So this is, all my poems used to end in sky, but now they end in sleep, a kind of tumbling toward the inevitable, Or maybe that's what I want to believe. Like the anonymous woman on the burning Orange Line train last week who jumped from the smoking window of the first car and then 30 feet off the Mystic River Bridge where the train had stopped. I think I'm safer here, she told her would-be rescuers in the Coast Guard boat before she swam to shore and disappeared. Boston's new hero, crowed the headlines the next day. And maybe that's just where we're at right now, America. A woman uncoupling herself from burning steel to dive into a brackish current famed for absorbing heavy metals, petrochemicals, and other bodies, then swimming away without leaving her name. In the video posted on Twitter, her head is a small, dark blot, almost obscured by halos of ripples, as the camera pans from too far away to find her face. Boston strong! Probably she was already late for work, people joked in the thread. But maybe she was on her way home from the overnight shift, I thought, but didn't say. A job she fell into years ago, never meaning to stay until the kids came along and she couldn't afford to pay both rent and a sitter. Now she relies on the jerk and clatter of the Orange Line to lull her back each morning over the bridge towards bed. I was very scared for all of us, she said, before hanging up on the one reporter who tracked her down. I imagined her turning over and pulling up the sheet, erasing herself back to sleep.
You know, Anna, we actually have a couple of open micers who didn't make it. So if you'd like to read another short one, you are welcome to do that. Hey,
Okay.
Ruth,
Hi.
good to meet you. I should say to the audience that one of the features tonight is in a workshop, a virtual workshop with half of the open mic. So we've got some fabulous poets because of that, and they're here to do to be friends and particular appreciators, and probably know some of the work that we're about to hear later on. But next, how about Ruth Goring? Ruth, let's hear from you.
Thank you. I'm so glad to get to participate here. I'm going to read two poems. One is from a very difficult time in my recent past. It's called Default. It was easier to swallow fault, to gulp it down as if it fed me. These stones of failure, heave them one by one to pyramid. Repeat, repeat, my awkward sweat, muscles regret. Light incense offer what I have been, the meat of me, repeat. The stones of me, the bones, the grooves of thought, howl hunger, burn, burn stones, awake. Facts rattle in my lungs. My hands are saying justice, justice. And I have been involved, as a few of you know who are friends with me online. In the last year, I've been involved in Palestine's solidarity because of the United States complicity with what's happening to them, what's being wreaked upon them. And this is from the month of June this year. It's called Red on White on Black on Green. And it is a sort of altered guzzle form. I'm turning 70. To celebrate, I lay down on the street for peace in Gaza, covered with a sheet and photos honoring the dead, the pieces of their ordinary lives, the bleats of goats, herds scattered, olives, peas, wheat blasted, shattered, under siege. Under my sheet, I prayed for peace. As red paint dripped onto its whiteness, all around our shrouds were pleas to stop the bombs, the brightness of white phosphorus and sprees of burning, 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 burning ports and fields. I lay in peace under my sheet in a new freedom to say no. Stop the shipments, please. I said no with my body, would not walk away, will give no peace to my country that sends bombs, 2,000 pounds apiece, to shred, to shred, to shred the tents of refugees. Let the police zip tie my wrists. Gaza is in my heart and lungs, a piece of me, of you. The ruthlessness of genocide. Our tongues, our lungs say stop, say freedom. We say peace.
Thank you, Ruth. Those were really powerful. And Nina, I see that Ruth Ellen Coker is here now. She's in the chat.
Yes,
Don't-
she is. Hi,
Yeah.
I'm so yeah.
Will she, so she can join us on the open mic?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
okay, great.
I'm so
Well,
sorry I was late. I apologize so much. I'm in a little bit of a vacuum over here.
are you ready? Would you like to go? Okay.
Yeah,
great.
absolutely. Speaking
So-
of living in a vacuum, I'm reading a poem that this book, which will be released in 9 days on the 20th, is called what is it called now? It's called Archon After, and the poems have no titles. But they begin like Emily Dickinson-esque with the first line. And the first line of this poem is, "When I die alone." Okay. When I die alone, I want mostly to be at least perfectly clad, at least a bra, a black one, because black is intentional. I want to be lying on my side. No, I want to be lying on my back with my legs crossed at the ankle, jaw extended up a bit as though I were just lying in the sun, thinking about the past, thinking about how only the dead will interrupt this moment. My neck flexed just enough so the shadow of my jaw seems a mercy as my silhouette blooms into an eternal pose. I want the carpet under me to rhyme with the late October roses blooming blood red in my yard long after their leaves have curled yellow back towards understem. As I die alone, the memory of those roses will be a murmur circling the room. She was so young, or she lived so long, or she was a plume, a spur of pleas drenched in midnight. She was a notion of bones that had been a woman, or she ate the wind as though it filled her. I'd like my toes to be painted any color of pink, opaque, that interrupts the way death stitches my body blue. I want birds as morning marquee, a sky circling murmuration. I want mercy, mostly. A soft landing parachute into forever, like soul strike, like posed riot, then home. Thanks.
Did you want to do one more?
Oh, that's very nice. Sure. I'm, oh, this poem begins with Michelle tells us her mob name is Velvet. And this is written for Michelle Cutler. Michelle tells us her mob name is Velvet. I understand what it means to feel jealous. It's the possibility of an other object gushing through the sluices of a never named you, a you unpinned. The anonymity in being named for, as in commit to a life on the lam, incognito. To be named for your father completes a room like curtains. To be named for your aunt means a low-flying anonymity somewhere in her past, a time she believed she could be unseen in the blink of an eye. In one story, your name means daughter, dutiful. You name your daughter beloved, name her friend. In another story, you name your daughter mother, naming to undo, or naming a stitch like the binding of what's done. A once friend changed her name, but I've forgotten why, which means I've also forgotten her name. Your mother's name is a quilt she'll buy, velvet purple, velvet green, duende flapping black wings. I would like to be called Velvet. I'd like to mouse the unseen night and manifest elsewhere, name myself some scene. I'll never be my own story. Somewhere, someone is named Hot Pink, her clipped hair the color of beet juice, her walk a specific movement. Hot pink caterwauls, the resonant evening at will, all stunt, plumb like a good doorway my mother walks through to meet her own mother again. One of them holds me close, but I can't remember who. I think about my name too often. One of them thinks too much how to name. Thank you.
Thank
Beautiful.
you for being with us tonight. Patrick Reardon, nice to see you.
Good to see you. Good to be here. I'm going to read a poem that's about 3 years old because the title is I Want to Teach Emma, who is 2. Well, Emma's now 5. Emma's my granddaughter. So I want to teach Emma, who is 2. I want to teach Emma, who is 2, to look out this window at the chaos of yellow and green on the midsummer tree. Not so chaotic when from the ground she can see the tree trunk, solid thick, rising up and branching with myriad leaves, each one a tiny branch, but bursting with surface to feed on light and color, to signal the arc of its journey. And to notice how it looks now on this cloudy day, and yesterday in the joyful sun, and tomorrow with the rumble rain, and to feel with her eyes the touch of the grit of the mortar and bricks of the brown wall behind these leaves, and to see with her spirit the spirits moving around behind that wall, living the arcs of their journeys, and to rise up in her connection to mystery, to the heavens, to look down on this city, this world, to look down and see the billions of spirits on sidewalks and forest paths, on fields and in towers, each yearning, each breathing, each hoping amid the chaos of pain in the arcs of their journeys, and to look down and be one with those multitudes. You, Emma, are multitudes, and one with the world where they live, the breathing, yearning earth, as beautiful as this mid-autumn tree outside this window, which is as beautiful as everything in the cosmos and as she is. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. That was lovely. So next, how about Janet Jennerjohn? My buddy. Janet? Are you there?
Yep, hello.
Okay.
I'd like to say how happy I am to be here with so many of my friends, and especially to be reading with two of my favorite people and writers, Ahi and Nicole. You guys know I love you both. I'm going to start with read two poems. The first one was recently accepted by Swim Every Day. So thank you, Swim, forthcoming in January. Abandoned. My son, a new cop in a middle-sized city in the Midwest, sends me a text. A video of him Mirandizing a little lost puppy. The video is filmed in the middle of his midnight shift. It's grainy and night vision red. The juvie pit bull mix pads towards my son's voice. You have the right to remain silent. He does. The screen turns to black as his tiny nose approaches me. I imagine it is wet and cold. He is only a baby, abandoned in a wastewater tunnel, or left among the unhomed beneath a train trestle, or alone and shivering, his shadow large amid the mosaic of puddles populating an underpass. My son's voice is kind and reflective, a little playful. He knows that puppy better than any of us. When he was found in Barrio Kennedy, a poor neighborhood in a large South American city, I hope that Colombian cop whispered to him in a kind voice, "Buenas noches, muchachito. Ven acá, mijito. Ven acá." And the second one I wrote at Nicole's kitchen table with some other of the people here. It's called Synesthesia. My husband often dreams of flying through the lithe hills of Pittsburgh. Real wings attached through a spider web of nerves, bloodstream fluid, and scherzo. I dream of falling through time, a ventriloquist acquiring air. When I fall, it's into water, rivers, lakes, sounds, florid with sea life awaiting me. Once on a visit to Big Sur, the crepe paper air was ablaze with yerba, wild fennel, eucalyptus camisoling a sensual path to the shoreline where 3 tongues of water made centos of mountain streams. Had I the faith of 100 hallelujahs, I would have jumped, flung this nobody of bodies into the coral and starfish, made of myself a meal for the elephant seals and the blue crabs. How lovely to be a piece of flesh on a tusk, scent of me on the wind. Thank you.
Beautiful.
That was beautiful. That actually reminds me, well, this is a good time for announcements. If you're just joining us and if you have been here faithfully all along, I want to urge you to buy the books of the features. And Bill, who is our tech guy, is going to be putting them in the YouTube chat or channel. He may have already done it once, but he's going to do it again. And one of the best gifts you can give a poet is to buy their book. And also, if we would like to pay our poets, we just kind of think that that should be a thing. And if you would like to, and I urge you to, Bill is also going to put in the chat a link to the donate button for After Hours, which is Al's journal and website. And he'll be gathering up whatever it is that you contribute, the more the better, and splitting it and sending it along to our two features. Another thing, here's how we do our open mics. We ask people to toss their hats in the ring by either dropping us an email or a note on Facebook through our Traveling Molly's page. However, and we'll take all those names and let you know if you've been chosen for the open mic. I think I've got most of that, Bill, there in the background. Is there anything else I should be saying?
I think that's it.
All right. Good. Go ahead, Brenda. Were you going to say something?
Just a lot of our open micers have books too. So I don't know if they want to throw them in the chat themselves. Could they do that?
You're welcome to. However, we really want to sell the features books.
Okay.
So throw your money at them tonight. All those many, many dollars.
Okay.
Maybe not hundreds of dollars, but
Yeah.
okay, let's see. Who have we got left on the open mic? We have two more people. Michelle Kotler. Michelle, give us a couple of poems.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. And it's really special to be here with the Matrix ladies. And both of these poems were written with them. Raise your hand if you want to be more generous. Growing up, my mother would say, the rich don't get rich from being generous, and rich or poor, it's sure nice to have money. Raise your hand if you want to be more generous. Growing up, my father treated a 14-hour workday like a knot he needed to untie. It was unclear what was more tired, his yellow checker cab that would shake after he pulled the key from the ignition after countless miles of messed up streets, or him. The night my 5-year-old voice asked, why was he so tired if all he did was sit down all day, was not a good night for anyone. The cavity of my sense or nonsense is its own addict of, I won't ask that question again. Growing up, it was my job to count each inch of money, including every circle of coin. Cab driving was all cash then. My father would give me a mattress of bills. My little hands would steady each president in the same direction and make piles of 1s, 5s, 10s, 20s, and every once in a while there would be a juicy lone 50. I would add each stack and form tricky buildings of coins to get to a total that he already knew. After, he would ask me to show him my hands, and they would be dirty. He would say each night, money is dirty. It's what you do with it that makes it clean. I'm thinking of my dad a lot these days. He's 97 and he's holding on, but he's 97. Painting. I'm sorry?
Another one for us?
Yeah, I'm gonna do this one and then I'll hand back the mic. Painting with my ex during a genocide. My daughter's room is now opal. My ex and I don't work well together. Every time I bury this fact like a piece of history that no one wants to remember, it comes curdled to the hot surface, and who wants to drink that? The last time I painted with a man, it was my father. Before he mellowed, his mania was a thief in a bank with no security cameras on. His mania braided my childhood and was a silhouette of hours and days seamed into a stitch so tight it was mistaken for an impossible knot. Painting with my mania dad was the opposite of pristine. He would put me on his shoulders, how he instantly replaced a ladder with himself. And that is how I learned how to coat a ceiling. How the paint didn't drip into my eyes is its own answered prayer before I even knew the word for pray. A year after the first paint job, I was thrown into religious school. At 5, I learned how to pronounce the word Holocaust. I can't forget the pictures of emaciated naked bodies stacked like day-old baked goods. The stories that Miss Badanowski asked us to memorize. First, you were forced to dig your grave and then you were shot into it. Or it could be the special shower where gas came out and there was never water. At 5, I became suspicious of washing, of digging. There was no nuance, no translation. My father made it very clear. Germans did this, as if each German was the shooter, was the person turning on the pretend water. I knew not to not believe. I learned how big 6 million. I learned how to eat history without chewing. I still had my baby teeth. I learned how to swallow hate because I was 5 and couldn't separate details from details, history from history. I still have to practice hearing someone speak German and not want to run fast away. My daughter's room is opal. My ex painted the ceiling. We spoke genocide as if it were its own coat, and how could we not?
Brenda, before you introduce the last poet in the open mic, I just wanted to comment about one of the things that's very cool about virtual readings is that one, we get to hear people who are from all over the country rather than just who's here in town. We do originate in Chicago, by the way. But the other thing that's nice is when you can see, people's dogs running around behind them, Ruth Ellen, and sometimes a husband's shoulder will show up on a screen. And you never know what you will.
Yeah.
But it's like, is that you? What are you doing? Saying hello? Hello. Hi there. So Brenda, you want to introduce the last open micer?
Is the last one Iris?
Yes.
Iris Jamal Dunkel. Great to see you, Iris.
Hello, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here with so many of my good friends and with all of you who I will be my good friends by the end of this evening. I'm going to read just one poem from my erasure of the Grapes of Wrath. I erased this book as a way to empower myself to tell the story of Sonora Babb, whose names are unknown, did not get published because John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath was published 3 weeks before her book was to be published. So you can read more about that in my biography, Writing Like the Wind, The Life of Sonora Babb. But I also write poems while I'm writing a biography. And this one is called Fairy Tale of the Plains, Sonora Babb. 1. Cruelty is a fairy tale written on the walls of a dugout, covered in newspaper. At night, you could hear the moan of the earth, a single word cut out and swallowed, white paper dissolving inside like a little moon. 2. Above the dark room, cruelty softens. Air carries the scent of stage. Horizon bends to the shape of a barrel. Boards stretch so taut they might burst. You might believe there's nothing. You might. 3. But the word is still in her belly. When she rises, when she begins to walk toward an escape, a cliff, or a train whistle. 4. She chooses the train, and it transports her to the first city, click of heels upon pavement, press of suited bodies against her, her fingers bruised from the force in which she tells her word back to her typewriter. 5. Time passes. She learns to satellite from city to city, from continent to continent, always looking as if she's just stepped from the darkness. The wild rivers that froth past, children pressing their starving faces against the glass. The train passes them by. 6. Cruelty was an owl perched on every post, watching. It followed her to the ends of the earth, so to speak, and in the end the creature flew into her screaming mouth. 7. In her darkness, she could still see the small room, smell their bodies, see the red glow of the monkey stove, feel the press of the soil, the ache of the hungry roots. The owl flew wildly against walls, feathers snowing the air. 8. It was only a body after all. Once upon a time, the girl opened her mouth and the owl flew out and she emerged. Underfoot, the buffalo grass. Overhead, the sound of geese circling, and in her mind, the word burning. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I think what Iris didn't say was that Steinbeck used Sonora Babb's field notes, right, to write his book, and then hers didn't get published, but he
That's
stole.
correct.
Yeah, he stole her research. So anyway, you got to read the biography for that.
Wow.
But yeah,
But I'm just going to introduce my guest host and good buddy. She's going to read a poem, and then that's going to take us into A. Healy, and then after that, Nicole Callihan.
Okay, I'm going to just read a kind of a light-hearted poem called Fireflies and Cucarachas. When I think insect, oh, and this is for Michelle and Janet. When I think insect, I see firefly, swallowtail, shimmering green beetle. My pal sees chigger, tick, cucaracha, brushing its antenna across her cheek. We both get caught in spider webs of self-imposed penance, itchy thickets of crosstalk before the lockjaw, when we become ventriloquists shouting, "Ayúdame! Ayúdanos!" from behind sealed lips. And even when I forget to stop talking, she doesn't turf me because I bring spicy refrains and frank blazes. I once knew a man who called me the mouth. He labored all day in assembly line din before returning home to a raccoon, a wife who looked like a hawk, and stinky ferrets he shoved in my face just to grin at my flinch and yelp. See, I have a dog's sense of smell, can sniff those tail glands before I walk through the door. The fuego in the kitchen before the grease even splashes. Last year's lavender still choiring my mind opera. At the moment, I'm inhaling the hot buttered lobster rolls from way up in Essex, Connecticut. Don't ask me to eat a fish that stinks of sweaty undies. I will find no pearl in that oyster, and please don't stick your ferret in my nose. I loved the man, though. He was my best friend's father, and she's all oranges and apricots. Sometimes a plum left in the crisper of our first apartment's refrigerator the day we had to abandon ship so the exterminator could kill the cucarachas sprinting across the kitchen sink. I love her too. We are playing a long game of Yerba Buena, and it smells like summer's fireflies flashing their buzzed up wiggles at each other to begin the slow tango toward heaven. Okay. So that is that. Nina, I will. Oh, that's right. It's me, right? We're going to introduce Ahili now. Yay.
And
Okay.
you're gonna read a poem for Ahi, weren't you?
No.
No?
No, I didn't have that planned.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood. In that case,
Sorry.
all right.
Sorry.
So, okay. So then, did you want to introduce her?
Yeah.
All right. Go for it.
I'm good. The official bio is born in South Korea and raised in Peru. Ahili is the author of Asterism, selected by John Murillo for the 2022 Dorset Prize, and the poetry chapbooks Bedtime Riverbed, Dear Bear, and Conetary, the last of which was selected for the winner as the winner of the 2021 Frost Place Chapbook Competition. He is a Just Buffalo Literary Center Fellow, a Droit Journal Gregory DeGenova Scholar, and a recipient of the James Olney Award by the Southern Review. She has received scholarships and honors from the Academy of American Poets, AWP Breadloaf, and Shawnee Writers Conference, among others. And I just wanted to add personally to that I know Ahi, and her book Asterism has become one of my very favorite books. Really, one of my very favorite books by newer poets, and she's just a remarkable poet. I feel that she works like a jeweler or a miniaturist, just with the tiniest delicacy. And she's also just a beautiful human being. So, Ahili, take it away.
Hello. I'm just so honored to be reading among all of you. And I just want to thank Nina, Brenda, and Al, who's not here, just for inviting me to be here and just enjoy this moment with you. I'll be reading from Asterism, and just asterism it's a word that refers to a pattern of stars that can be observed by the naked eye, or a group of three asterisks. And it's a word that just made me think about like belonging and what's beyond this idea of belonging as some in connection to maybe belonging to like a country or a single culture and so on. And how can we see belonging as something that moves and expands and grows with each new person we meet, with each new thing we learn about ourselves and the world. So I'll be reading a couple of poems. I'll start with Self-Portrait as Portrait. And I usually like to start my readings with a deep breath. And I also like to invite people to join me in taking this deep breath. God knows how much we need this, those. So here we go. Self-portrait as portrait. Dearest you, I suspect we were made tentatively, an exact assemblage of organs, emotions, complete with little phantom pains. When your Korean was young, you asked your father not to call you an ingan, human, because you didn't know what the word meant. But now, every day We meet at the edge of every edge, our ankles frail for touching. Together we are unhyphenated, indefinite, country not culture not skin, clumsy, geese of 3 wings, one for ourselves, one for the world, one for strangeness. Surely some will continue to call us inconvenient. We won't forget all beautiful things are. The second poem is called Inheritance as Invocation. Because there's pleasure in secrecy, I kneel in silence before a kitchen cabinet. I pull out the large can of sesame oil. Inhabiting this corner of the house, I remove the cap, bring my nose closer to the opening. The rim glistens copper, the smell of an unfamiliar soil, a country I was born to but didn't grow up with. I breathe it in. I breathe out, 고소하다. This is still a word I cannot translate until it evaporates. At times, my mother tells me about my father, sets afloat hushed fairy tales into the waters of my nights. She explains my father is a lidded well, a closed circle of arms, thumb leaning on thumb, how as an 8th son no one expected him to survive the winter, how he lives holding a birth date that migrates with the moon. Can you love what you don't know? I glance at the edge of a mirror, a crystal caught in my cornea. Maybe the unknown is but a hard mirage of what's known, a questionable carbon copy of the seer's mind. My curiosity draws me to this displaced image, selects from it. My parents' nostalgia expands it infinitely like a prism. I want to love what I don't know. I want to learn, allow myself this yearning. A homeland of mountains with low, uneven shoulders. In the distance, their outlines are plumed as if made of torn paper. A homeland of electric forests, persimmons, and expired peppermint candies in the shape of diamonds. This land wasn't promised to me, but my memories open their palms. They claim nothing as their own. They invoke, they let go. You have your father's face, an aunt told me once. A camel's long eyelashes and dark stars for eyes. I admit, my father has passed on to me many of his idiosyncrasies. The closing of hands behind the back, the bottling of desire until it bursts into 1,000 iridescent needles of glass. But when I visit his house in Chungju, I don't call it home. I glimpse a pair of cosmos flowers, resting their heads against half-finished steps, caress their purple ears and ask if they'll remember me from time to time. And I return to myself, broken and full. Chicago as re-entry ritual. Chicago is like the O'Hare Airport. I'm sure many of you are familiar with. It's a great place that it made me think that I frequented often as I was like traveling from home to home, and this was like my main port of entry. So I wrote a poem about the ritual that I've developed as I've been traveling. I've become an expert at packing exactly 50 pounds worth of breadcrumbs. The luggage, the head, I unload mid-flight. I leave a snowy trail over the Pacific. The fish swallow my way back, but I know the tail will remain. Upon landing, I look back, my eyes crust with salt. I wander through the labyrinth of customs, praying for safe passage in a mixed tongue. What's the purpose of your visit? They ask. What's the purpose of me? I ask and answer myself every time. To be reunited with love, waiting at every side of the border. To consider a country isn't a womb, though a womb can be a country. To carry the migrant dust on my limbs, the remnant skin cells from people who embraced me goodbye, to let them weigh my hymns, to die like a candle to a kiss at each point of entry, rename my departures into returns. Upon practicing a second language, I understood speech as a manner of wind. Voice could be voiceless, place nestled inside palate, the dark side of teeth, or throats deep. When I couldn't parse ooh from root and foot, ears and letters showed themselves, dragonflies, lured young by the smell of sap, hardened within splintering amber. In the end, I chose to laugh when I repeated dessert, desert, dessert, driven mad with intention until I found out what word I truly craved. Like this, I dropped my words into wishing wells, not believing it a waste. Some days I noticed that to delight in the whimsy of meaning could also be a sign I was lonely, wanting to be, wanting to long, but I was happy too. I could savor the second a violet turned violent in my radiant mouth. El Milagro Aceches. And El Milagro is a neighborhood in Trujillo, my hometown in Peru. It means the miracle too. And this is for my friend, for my childhood friend, Alejandra. This is what the sun would taste like if stored in a fridge, Alejandra says, as she hands me a perfectly round slice of pineapple, chilled, half dressed in a thin plastic bag. She smiles, her face casting an umbra in which I am a visitor. Once I read, each heart knows its own bitterness, and no one else can share its joy. But we sit, our backs mothered by this wall. We, a brief intersection of elbows, a small choir of helpless slurps, our mouths flooding and the juice dripping freely, dribbling down the length of our tan fingers, down to dot the sand until we reach the middle, tough to the touch of our teeth. I mistake it for seed, but it's not seed. It's corazón, core, a core, what brings together a fruit's flesh. She eats until her hands empty, while I can't. It's hard and not so sweet. Anything you can find in the world, you can find in the body. In Trujillo, my hometown, a man crouches with a knife buried under his ribs. I'm 11, and within the gash I see glistening crimson pearls, strawberry candies removed from a mouth's viscous enclosure, sugar surrendering in syrup to the sun, witnessing a pair of legs running away, slowly soaking with gravity, while somewhere rain muddles the ground. An unending velvet handkerchief from a magic show flutters because it could disappear at any moment. The squeals of children playing tag, hands cold, seeking sanctuary in a lover's pocket, an entire ocean ebbing red with relentless dusk. In Milwaukee, I leave a TV blinking with the news. Another shooting, as if picking up where it left off. The world continues to spill out from the most recent body side. Older now, I know how to be afraid, get angry at the trade, metal for possibility, get chrysanthemum flowers and watch them wither. I keep trying to turn my mourning into something meaningful. Though the body bleeding out today is the body bleeding out tomorrow. And hope feels more like suffering, to not become the dough which stays frozen in place, replacing its fears with angels, mesmerized by the bright headlights descending to crush it. This one is a slightly shorter one. It's a short one. It's called Home Remedies. For bee stings, my parents would rub a spoonful of doenjang on my skin until it scabbed. For burns, they wrung the aloe vera in our backyard for its tears. For scraped knees, a song, Sana, sana, colita de rana. Si no sanas hoy, sanarás mañana. Promised me all tadpole tails grew back eventually. For homesickness, I crooned the same song. It didn't work. I found out then the ability to heal diminishes with age. But it mattered little. I sang anyway. 목욕탕, which is like a public bathhouse in Korea, Korean style. 목욕탕 is inside. Is the place, is kind of a place where everyone kind of gets naked and gets into the same tub. It's actually quite beautiful. 목욕탕 inside. From the entrance, the steam smells of pine leaf and boiled eggs. I sink into one of the hot tubs, quickly become raw skin, conditioned timidity I can't reason away. Maw of heat, blush with a nervous eye on a towel, which had assured me it would conceal the soft folds on my stomach. I'm not alone. There are others more accustomed to bareness close by. Today, we all wear the same teal waters, every quivering droplet. Together, we tread the tile floor as moons of milk fat, of dark budding nipples and crevice eyes, of wide stony hips, of tender skin exfoliated from mineral sweat and grime. And I pulse and curve, feel lightheaded in the warm water, or the beauty of something so ordinary like the body. Inside this 목욕탕, I start to believe I can hide away from the eyes and words that hunger. I lean back, drift into a time long before shame was something to dress for. And this is my last poem. It's called Green Card as Evidence of Adequate Means of Financial Support. Which is one of the forms you fill out when you're applying for the green card. I needed money. There's no poetic way to say this. Even so, when you touched my face, brought my cheeks to the nook of your neck, I burrowed into it. A firefly seeking shelter from winter far underground. Then you told me there's no application form that can hold the entirety of a life because our days constantly spill like wine. Imagine that, you said, apricot tones all over the page. You told me about ferns bejeweled with jade dew, their coiled fiddleheads full of unfulfilled, twirling futures. And I forgot about my fixation with earning people's respect, among other things for which I had been told it was proper to plead until granted. You told me if immigrants could enrich a country, you didn't want to know our melting point and whether we would shine brighter than gold. You told me how I could stop confusing belonging with belongings, good with goods, by sharing the way our hearts continue to beat, resilient, even without an assurance of worth. You told me there can be solace in a dead end, in knowing the sea still collapses, still runs and soars, carrying its broken shells somewhere out there. Then you buried a kiss in the dark earth of my hair. I believed it all. What else could I do? Thank you.
Hey, that was gorgeous. That was gorgeous. Thank you. Yeah, I think I need to take a breath.
Yeah, isn't she a beautiful writer?
Yeah. Let's see, what was I going to say? One thing I did want to say it is that this video is being recorded and will be up on the YouTube website. So probably by the end of the evening. And so if there's anybody you know that needs to see this, let them know. And I mean, I'm hearing some lines that I want to go back to and listen to again. So you might want to do the same. Brenda, I'm going to ask for your help in introducing Nicole Callihan because I can read what's written here, but I think that she deserves an equal
Yes, I agree.
Brendan. Okay, so I'm going to read her bio. Nicole, it's good to have you here. Nicole Callihan's most recent book is Chigger Ridge, The Word Works 2024. Other books include The Strange Garment on Terrapin, 2023, and the 2019 novella, The Couples. She also co-edited the Braving the Body anthology published by Harbor Editions in March 2024. You may have heard about that anthology. There was a little bit of a flap about the publishing part of it, but has a wondrous amount of good poetry inside. Anyway, her work has appeared in the Kenyon Review, Tin House, Conduit, the American Poetry Review, and as a Poem a Day selection from the Academy of American Poets. She won an Alma Award, and her next book, Slip, will be published by Saturnalia in 2025. Nicole, thanks for being with us. I'm looking forward to hearing. And Brenda.
Nicole is a dear, dear friend of mine too. I am so blessed tonight, right? To have two lovely friends featuring from different parts of my life. I've learned so much about poetry from Nicole, and I feel, her books are some of my very favorite work as well. When I read Sugar Ridge, I didn't put it down. I just sat there and read the entire book and was just blown away. And I feel that way about her work overall. And so, Nicole, I love you very much and happy to have you.
I love you, Brenda. And thank you so much. Thank you, Nina, for this great space. It feels so good to be here. Ahi, your poems were stunning. Stunning. I want us all to go to the Korean baths and and just sit there for 1 week, please. So yeah, and it was also really amazing to hear the open mic. So thank you all. I'm gonna read from Sugar Ridge. And yeah, I'm just gonna read, and then I'll read one poem that will be in Slip too. I'm just making note of the time. Sugar Ridge. There the sun did not rise until we'd been up for hours. Then it crowbarred the day, turned the trees from lead to silver, turned the dead to face the river, the night again. The poet told me to go to sleep. Wait until I dreamed of an angel, and when the angel speaks, the poet said, listen to her. Notice the color of her dress, blue jean blue, then wake up and write it. Down in the valley all night I slept. I was naked, but I was not cold. And lo, I say unto you, the angel did her bidding. And lo, she offered me a slop jar. And lo, a cat's eye marble. And lo, she told me to be not afraid of the soul. And the grass on the ledge in which I lay made me itch with a violence I'd carry away. If the portrait of the self is a palette on the floor, if the floor is as hard as the night outside, if the night's got nothing on the old man out back, you say self and point to my chest. But what of these trees, this still star-soaked sky? What of the cuts and tongues and tins of meat can be cleaved from the girl on the ridge who in the dark with a cleaver stands? And lo, I say unto you, lo, I say, come with me, lo. Moon. Ain't nothing was right in those hills. Dogs humped cats and cousins' cousins, like took to unlike and made it like. All winter the loblollies violated the moon, so you couldn't see for shit. couldn't feel to feel, couldn't even try, and trying didn't mean nothing more than digging up a can of tuna from the cupboard. If you strained your ears, you might hear crying, but probably you'd just hear what you have, ass, elbows, what the doctors call murmur. Pellet. Among the things we shot off the barbed wire fence, an old plastic doll head, a couple of tins of peas, about 100 Sundrop bottles, their labels melted off by storm and toil. With one hand, Malachi pointed the gun to the sky. The other he put down my pants. I sucked on his earlobes and fingers. Like this, I asked. He steadied my arm. You gotta keep your eye above the target. Staring straight will choke you. We'd shoot and pet, swat skeeters until dusk when nobody called us home. I love you, I said into the air. You wouldn't know love if it bit you in the ass. Day. To imagine there had been dusty apples would mean there had been apples, once maybe in jars, in some cellar, jarred up like down at the schoolhouse. Baby girl in a jar, feed us, the science teacher scolded, feed us. But he was the kind who believed in monkeys. Feed us this day our daily mush, let us not be hungry. Let our bodies not invisible be. Let there be a tree where something grows. Let us not be mere specimens. When all things commence, let us among the things be. Close. The fog which stitches us in seams us, makes us seem unseemly, clasping clasps, sewing me into this old blue dress. My love is a knot, is all tied up. Oh, safely pinned body unravel, unwind, hot southern, pick me up and deliver me with flowers from evil to grace. Blind girl, blind cat, can't see your hand in front of your face. I keep thinking somebody will save me, but it's hard enough to make it to the store around here, let alone cut coupons, let alone find redemption or a shirt that buttons and is stainless. Remedy. She's got answers to questions you didn't know you had. How to have a baby, how to get rid of a baby, what to do if you get cauliflowers on your privates, sassafras, spearmint, lard, snake root, cut grass, kerosene, ginger for worms. It's 2 parts brown sugar, 1 part turpentine, sister bunny, pie maker and healer. If body is to body as soul, to lump in your throat, to belly, thigh, lump, thigh, titty, thigh, lump, lump of clay, of grace. Everybody knows not to sweep under the bed of the sick. But here's something else. Let the birds use your hair for their nest and you'll go crazy. If this happens, tie a string around a crabapple tree. There in its shade, bury your dreams. Smoke. The old man's knee was a horse, and the horse was named Smoke, and the old man's sweater was made of smoke, and his fingers and his face, and if you breathe just right, you're smoke too. The horses got so hungry they started eating the trees, but the trees had no more fruit than the bowls that were earthen, empty and blue, a sky tipped up on its hind legs, bucking and mad. Mustang moon, back room. If you dig deep enough into the ashtray, you might find something worth smoking. Lord, I, the undersigned, have been more evil than I would like to admit in these papers. These papers themselves are dressed in the devil's clothes, and I in the devil's wife's sweater, and in the pants of the devil's wife's best friend, who, seeing that I had bled myself in church one Sunday, showered me with maxi pads, elastic bands, panties bigger than all the hills. Oh, Jesus, I don't know how much smaller and weaker you could have made me. Can't tell love from pity, but if to inherit the earth is this, I do not want the earth. Dream. For days I soured on dreams. On the fifth, I wrapped the filth around me and made peace with what was left of myself. In the dream, walked 1,000 miles to knock on my own door and got no answer. When I tried the knob, I let myself in once, did nothing more than fall asleep on the pallet on which I was already sleeping. What happens when the body we discover is our own? After the sixth night, I rose and listened to the back room where the old man slept. Light would come, I told myself, and so I swept the corners good and hard. House. Not that the house still stands, but that it ever stood. Not that the tree that rots, rots, but that it ever bloomed. We were an accidental people. Our accidental hands built accidental houses with accidental wood. I liked to sit and watch the old man sweat and hope he'd fall down river, downstream, down home, down Delhi, down. The only way to remember the West is to remember where you last spotted the sun. Smoke rises from the chimney, from the mill, and from that which smolders, for that which is nearly dead still burns hot and deep. Frost. The old man says the spring I was a glimmer, the ground shimmered cold, and somebody found some good bones to simmer, and everybody sipped and supped, and it seemed like things would be okay. Would be a little wax-wrapped pie in an old leather bag. But the wind howled hard, and the shimmer turned frost. Wouldn't have been much to pick the green tomatoes from the vine and let them ripen in a cardboard box in the front room, but nobody did. The tomatoes died, and though bitter as gall, the old man dug his thumbs in and ate them anyway. Glad. But everything wasn't always terrible. I'd save my dimes and stacks of 10 to buy math workbooks, and sometimes the sky got so blue I could feel my heart pounding in my throat. To walk along a river, even if you have never walked another river, is to know other rivers. To find a longing for something is to long to press that shapelessness into your palm, under your tongue, is to begin to understand its contours in the snow. Playing dead is to feel the fast flicker of being. Psalm. To stand on the mountain and try to find words for things, to try to find the order of things, to try to find the letters that make the words, that turn utterance into something he or she or they might, toad, firefly, longing, understand, to encant, enchant. Enchanted be the meek, for they shall inherit the tongues of their ancestors. To change your fate, sit by the stream and think of an animal you'd like to bury yourself in. Now hold that feeling to a flame. Now spit wash your dark. Now become other. Flight. Must have been spring. Everything was shining with meltedness. And I met Malachi by the river. First, it seemed he was just splitting a chicken, and the looking itself gnawed at my hunger. But he'd strung the feathers on clothesline. There on the ground in a sawed-off sundrop bottle, a robin's eggs, blood, and feathers from all sorts of birds. Figuring out how to fly, Malachi said. You should be ashamed of yourself, I told him. Then I let him kiss my neck a little. Then we sat in shame together and smoked beneath the sky. Escape. If self is to self as self is to others, then the crawl space in which the self has hunkered is the crawl space in which the self will stay. Cat stench and rain and moldy wrapping paper. Must have been a time somebody thought to make something pretty. If the words in the book are the soul salvation, if the soul salvation is the only salve, then may your young self be eclipsed. May you become what you never were. Hide it under a bush, oh no. Epilogue. Years have passed, and I have taken unlikely refuge in the academy. Occupying a small square office, I try to keep my fingernails clean. I do not know how people become people, or really even what a person is. My talk is small, and I remain likely to get distracted by the light. In order to quell my long-lived hunger, I give myself strange prompts. One-word title, I say. Don't mention the word mother. Who was the youest you can imagine? But what does this I know about that you? Nothing, everything. In these quarters, I am as unseen as I was on Sugar Ridge. Lo, the blinking cursor is the decades-old cat's eye marble knocking around in the slop jar is me. And then I will end by reading a poem from my book, which is coming out in March. The book is called Slip. The poem is called The Stick. There was a stick at the mouth of the cave. These are the things I did with the stick. Chewed it, waved it to the sky, poked myself in the eye, pretended it was a daisy. Pretended it was an orchid, a tulip, lily, cigarette, made it into a gun and shot my brother, nudged my brother to make sure he was dead, nudged my brother to make sure he wasn't dead, licked it like a lollipop, sang into it like a microphone, brushed my hair with it, brushed my tongue, gagged myself with it, gagged myself again, made myself throw up, made myself cry, made myself look pretty, made myself sit in the car alone, made myself practice writing my first name with the last name of a boy I loved, whipped my knuckles with it, my thighs, dug little stars into my forearm, tried to beat off a man, tried to beat him harder, tried to use it as a megaphone, tried to pry my mouth open and say the words out loud, made it into a calculus equation, an airplane, a gun again, pointed it to the sky, prayed over it, moved to Brooklyn with it, took it to the bar, punished it, ignored it, pretended it wasn't mine, put it in the corner of that dirty little apartment on 12th Street, let the cat piss on it, wrote bad poems about it, slept with it, let it touch me in places I had never been touched, let it scratch the very itch it made, took it to a candlelit dinner, packed it up into a U-Haul, turned it into an altar for my wedding, danced with it instead of with my father, took it on my honeymoon, didn't breathe a word of it to my husband, shoved it to the back of the junk drawer in our new home, forgot where I put it, searched for it, found it only after I forgot I was looking, let it accompany me to the hospital, bit on it while the baby was being born, bit on it while the next baby, the sick one, was being aborted, bit on it when the littlest was born, tried to prod myself awake. My God, I was tired. All those years of thermometers and back rubs and mommy, mommy, don't go. Started sleeping with it under my pillow, took it to therapy, gave it a name, hid it behind my back when my husband walked in, danced with it, wrote it in an appropriate email, wished I had buried it by the mouth of the cave when I still remembered where the cave was, used it to call my mother to see if she remembered the cave, turned it into a peace offering, until finally I tied a string to it and dangled the string into the river. There, after 1,000 years, I caught a fish, but the fish was too small, so I threw it back. Thank you.
Woo-hoo!
Yeah, absolutely.
Woo-hoo! For both readers,
Just beautiful. What was that, Brenda?
for both of them.
Yes,
Woo-hoo!
absolutely. And while we're at it, also for the open mic, which was just
Also for the open mic.
cool. The this is not so secret. A secret is that Brenda recommended both of these poets to me, and I am not at all disappointed. Thank you so much, Brenda. A couple of thoughts. One is, let's see, just a reminder that we like to pay our poets and we can't pass the hat virtually. So all we can do is ask you to donate and at the link that is in the chat. And buy their books. Maybe I don't have to even say that after listening. You may have already started that. Next month, we're going to have two poets or two writers from Rose Metal Press, which is a hybrid press, and we're going to have Naomi Cohn and Gary Snyder. So you will want to be here for that. And Bill just put a note in to that effect, to the effect of give money. By the way, if you haven't already, you may want to drop your name or your greetings in the chat over there on YouTube. And we're going to go into having a conversation, which I can't wait. I just want the two of you to know that even if I direct questions to one, not the other, they're going to be related, and jump in and ask or remark on whatever it is that we're talking about. And if you have a question, which I hope you will for the other. It was so some remarkable contrasts that were remarkable traits, worthy of remarking on. Related to sound and voice. For each of you, you asked us to breathe at the beginning of your reading, and I would say that one thing that seems to me to characterize your writing is breath. And I'd be curious to know what your poems look like on the page.
Oh, that is one of the most like beautiful things I've heard about my writing. Thank you. Yeah, the I am by nature a bit of an anxious person, so like the breathing really started because of that. But at the same time, I realized like it when I write poetry, I feel like I can breathe. And so like it I think it does get reflected in the form as well. Like it does I change the form constantly because I feel like we breathe in different ways in different situations. And just like the length of the line, right, changes according to that pace and that like situation, that story, that emotion that one feels when they find themselves like within it. So if you look at the collection, it is like very varied. Like some of them are more like the line length, they're similar to each other. Some of them are shorter, but then some of them are all over the page. And I actually have quite a lot of like prose poems in there as well, lyric essay style. So yeah, but thank you again. But I think I'll be like just dreaming about what you just said.
Well,
Yeah, no, it was wonderful to hear. I mean, I loved taking that breath. That was amazing. And then, and there was something, I love your question, Nina, about how things look on the page for you. So do you find that you, when you're writing a poem, does it generally come out for you in the form that it ends up in, or do you find in revision you play with the form a lot on the page or the look on the page?
I think I do. I'm definitely someone who goes through several drafts, and I think yeah, I love this portion that we're having the conversation part because that's what I think about when I'm writing the poems. Like we're having a conversation, and I'm asking the poem constantly, like, how does this feel? Like this and this form. And I think that kind of like the pace of the conversation also dictates like the breath, right? The pace of the breath and so on. Um, but I'm also very curious about your poems, Nicole, because like some of the poems seem to have this like rhythmic, almost like um how to I'm not sure like almost like prayer like quality to them. The but then
well,
at
the
the end,
repetitions. The
yes, that's what I was thinking. Right. Almost like a chanting, right? Quality to them. So I'm also curious to hear how they look on the page. Um,
They look actually for this book, they all look very
Mhm.
they're just very
Yeah.
small. Yeah, I mean I often this book is its own sort of it's a contained thing. It feels I don't know, it feels like my like little animal that lives in the corner of my office closet. um I and that I kind of feed a little. I don't often write poems that look that shape, but it was very much it was the summer of 2016 when I wrote it, and which I thought was a very unique time in our lives. But then it wasn't as unique as I had thought, because now it's 2024, and much of why I wrote it then has come back up.
Well, you know, you are both, and maybe we'll come back to this, but you're both talking about having a relationship with your poetry, and specifically with the book. He talking about the conversation with the poem, and Nicole, you're talking about the book as your little animal, which is interesting. I wanted to ask you what were the threads, because we didn't get a chance to read the whole books. Give us a sense of the context within what the poems you chose existed, both in terms of the thread running through it, or how it was organized for you. There was a story you were telling.
Well, I was not going to read from this book. And then hearing he read, I was like, it's so nice to hear someone like read, like I had this whole plan. I was gonna read like poems recently published in literary journals, just because I love literary journals and the community of literary journals, and I appreciate that world so much. And so at some point in this reading, I think I texted one of the open micers and was like, should I just read from Sugar Ridge? And she encouraged me to, so I did. So I didn't really plan, but I did read in order. So I have a prologue and I have an epilogue. And then I just read through. So
is there an organizing principles? What kind of animal would it be? But really more, what's the thread running through it?
Yeah, I mean there are a few different threads. I mean, there's a lot, there's a relationship, there's all sorts of, I mean, for me, so much of it is about sound in some ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing though, I had a reading last week, and my organizing principle for that is I read all poems with the word blue in it. And so I had those like marked already. So I think maybe I ended up reading some of those. But I have to say that the first poem, the Sugar Ridge title poem, in it, Jean Valentine, who was my very beloved teacher, came to me in a dream, and she did say this. She said, you can't be afraid to use the word soul in a poem. And I was so excited. I was like, okay, I'm game. Let's go.
Correctly, but wasn't there a part where soul was like the end and there was a line break and you added something so that it was the soul something or other?
Probably.
But I love thinking about how the soul is like a thread within your collection, right? And I one of my favorite lines when you were reading was also to not be afraid of the soul. I thought like, yes. But yeah, if I were to talk about like asterism, it was a book. I think I introduced it as like me exploring this idea of belonging, right? Um, I was born in Korea, but I grew up in Peru, and then I came here for my adult life, and then I ended up staying here because I got married. But when I was organizing the book, I didn't want to have this narrative of like the US as my goal, my end goal. So I just really took care to organize it in a way where none of the countries that and cultures that I've lived through were like the center. But they were all kind of um, they were kind of put together in a relational way. They were like talking to each other. So this idea of conversation was probably like really big for this one, for me.
And asterism, what is that again?
Oh, so it's related to this idea of like not having a single center, right? Because asterism is a pattern of stars. So it's like a smaller constellation that doesn't have necessarily a formal name. So it's like when you're connecting the dots on the sky, you're forming asterisms on your own. So I really just like that personal approach um, to seeing the world. And that's one of the reasons why the collection took on that name. Yeah.
Well, that really resonates with the idea of having three homes or three cultures, and maybe not belonging to any one, but belonging to something that that the stars light up. It's like they all of the places you've been have this share the same sky.
Right, right.
But it's different, right? I remember my friend Zoe moved to South Africa once, and she said that it was more striking to her how the sky was like the stars were at different angles,
Right. It's like the relationship you have with the sky changes depending on when you are too, right? It's the same sky, but it's at the same time it's different. It's like this idea of belonging to, in a sense, I could say that I don't belong to any of them, but I could also say I belong to all of them. I could say I belong beyond them too, right? So all of these ideas, I don't think they're like mutually exclusive from each other, but they're all simultaneous, right? And so yeah.
I loved that line, Ahi, about not to confuse belonging with belongings and good with
Right.
goods. So
What was
striking.
the other one that was in there that was kind of like, oh, that it was in that poem about having the money to get a green card or whatever, it belonging and belongings, but there was another one, not to confuse X with Y. What was it? Do you know what I'm asking?
Good with goods?
Yes, yeah, that was amazing. And you, Nicole, you do some a whole lot of wordplay in your writing as well, not just the anaphora, the repetition, but
Yeah, I mean, play is really big for me with writing. I have a lot of fun usually writing. It's like I really yeah, I mean, I really, really love playing with language and having language running around in my head, trying to pin something down. So yeah, no, I mean, so play is big for me. Yeah.
I'm curious, Nicole, do you have like certain like writing rituals in a sense or exercises that kind of like foment play or encourage play in your writing? Because I find myself sometimes like kind of restricted to my own like usual uh, patterns that I
Yeah, well, one thing, so our group, that Brenda and many of the poets in the open mic, we have we call it the Matrix. So, and we meet once a week, and we all like throw words into a matrix. Cucaracha, maybe, Brenda, is in your poem. So we all throw words into a matrix, and then we read someone else's poem for inspiration, and then we do cameras off, 30 minutes of writing, and you just go and you do. But something about having access to other people's language, words that you wouldn't necessarily use. I mean, that, and just trying to get them, and it helps you to approach things in a way. Yes, it does, Brenda. It helps you have a little more fun with it. So that's one thing. I also just I tend to write quite a bit. I mean, I go through phases where I really, write every day. And I've done that for mostly, for the past 12 or so years. So if you're doing it every day, you have to enjoy it. You have to have fun with it. So I have a friend who I collaborate with a lot. Like right now we're writing, like it's like a golden shovel sequence of each other's work. And so it's just all about like, I mean, I like that you use the word conversation, because that often is what ends up happening with our sharing of poems, and lots of voices. Yeah.
Wonderful idea, doing a golden shovel with each other's work so that you're picking a passage out of the other person's poem and then just writing a golden shovel from that.
It's fun.
I'm wondering if I should ask for the benefit of the audience what that form is, the golden shovel. It was started by Terrence Hayes, right?
Right. And it's
Gwendolyn Brooks.
With Gwendolyn Brooks, yes. Yeah, he's got that great one. So good. We real cool. And so you take a line from a poem of someone else's, and then you use every word as the last line in your own poem in order.
Every
that
word's the last word.
If you read the last words in each line downward, you're going to see the line from that other person's poem, right?
Mhm.
That's got to be fun to do that back and forth.
It is, yeah.
I'm looking at the time, and I just want to ask you if both of you, if you have any other questions for each other.
I'm like trying to think something out at the top of my head,
No,
but I was just like enjoying this conversation, this talk this back and forth that we were having, and it's just like so lovely to hear this idea of the matrix, right? And in a sense, like being inspired by others. I feel like that with reading, but in workshop settings too, like.
There was something else I wanted to comment on. There was a contrast um, in your titles. At least in your in Sugar Ridge, all of those titles were one-word titles. And for you, Ahi, they're longer titles, and I can't remember how you would describe. There's a way to describe it, and I don't know what it is, but there's like this as
Yeah.
It's just an interesting contrast because I don't think that your poems, um, they are like Brenda was saying, kind of like miniatures, but you have this kind of a sweep to your titles, whereas it's kind of the opposite for you, Nicole. Any thoughts about that? Or where your titles come from, or at least in these books that you've shared?
In my case, for some of my poems, the ask something poems, they came from like play as well, like but with translation, kind of translating not the definition of a word, but like the connotation, the association that I have with that word. So it started out more as an exercise, and then it became like it became like a guiding principle that allowed me to explore and really like converse with the poem. It became a conversation topic almost, right? Um, so that was like some of them that came up as I was like writing in the book, and then I was like, oh, I have a book after I started writing a bunch of these. Yeah.
I was thinking, Ahi, so it's as because the asterisms.
Oh.
So like as tourisms.
Oh. Maybe
That's
subconsciously.
yeah, that's really cool. As tourisms.
There's some serious wordplay going on in this space.
Yeah, mine, I usually have longer titles. I often have longer titles. This one was just, this book really came out like in a rush, over probably like 2 months. And I really was just like one word title. And all the poems were supposed to be between like, I think I made myself write them between like 8 and 12 lines. Though a couple of them got, a little shorter, maybe a couple got a little longer. So it was just, I felt kind of in a trance, more about the overarching project and less about like the individual poems. It was just like, I just gotta.
Yeah, which is why I was asking you more about the overall thread of it. But what was striking to me is that however short those poems were, they didn't feel short because of that kind of rolling quality to them. So the one word title was kind of striking. It was the contrast was striking, and I'm wondering if you think, seeing as the titles were a departure for you from other writing that you've done, was there something about those poems that suggested or that drew you towards a one-word title?
I mean, I think it's because the book is more of a unified thing. Brenda said that she read it all at once, which is such a compliment, but it's also the kind of, I think you kind of have to, I mean, it's you kind of have to read it. I mean, you could just read the beginning and the epilogue and read just like pick a few in the middle, but it kind of it has a narrative arc. And I didn't want like, titles to take away from the narrative arc. Like it's just supposed to,
I see.
like they're mostly invisible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Can I butt in?
Butt in, Bren.
Can I butt in?
Please. Please.
I feel like the titles being so spare, that one word, to me it just fits with the whole book. I mean, the poems are pretty spare, they're pretty short and pretty spare, but also like the lives I think being written about there are really spare lives, like for me, for my reading of Sugar Ridge, I read the people, the characters in this book as being pretty economically poor and distressed by that, down and out, right, is how I read them. And so for me, that spare title fit with all of that, and then in and I could be totally wrong, Nicole, and you can tell me, Brenda, you're full of it, but also in he's titles, you have so many titles that use that double colon, which isn't that supposed to mean like correspondence?
Yeah,
The
and
two
that's
things
the one I read as, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
You read it as
Mhm.
Okay, I wasn't noticing that, because when you were reading, I was like following along with you. So, yeah, okay. Mhm.
I don't want to take this a whole lot further just because of the time, but I was thinking about one of Amy Kwan Barry's books. I think it's called Controvertibles, maybe.
Uh-huh.
She actually has the X as blah, blah, blah in those titles, which I just kind of really jazzed me when I first read it, which was over a decade ago. But in any case, coming back to the two of you, thank you so much. I loved having this conversation with you. Brenda, thank you for how you made this evening come together. And
Thank you for asking me to suggest some folks.
great. That's great. All of you, be safe, be good to yourselves and your loved ones, because we're going to need that going forward. We really are. And I'll see you next month. Take care now.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone, take care.
That was wonderful. Beautiful, beautiful reading.
Before we all sign off, but the rest of you have a good night.
Sorry, could you repeat that?